This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 605, recorded on Wednesday, February 8th, 2017. No more monkeying around. Hey everyone, I am Dr. Kiki, and tonight on This Week in Science, we are going to fill your head with sea lampreys, Jekyll and Hyde, and carnivorous plants. But first...
Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. Global warming is a hoax, a vast left-wing communist conspiracy to defraud major energy companies and to slow down the American economic system to give unfair advantages to China. In all fact, the climate is cooling considerably right now over the northern hemisphere. Ice caps are growing, coral reefs are rebounding, rainforests are resplendent, major flooding is at an all-time low, weird weather is nothing new. And not only are extinctions a thing of the past, new species are showing up all the time. Why things are looking so good for the environment these days, serious consideration should be given to reducing public lands before nature encroaches any further on what precious little developed land we have left. And while all this good news in jest will likely be reported with sinister-like sincerity by the EPA soon, science will continue to march on This Week in Science. Coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind I can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
Good science to Kiki and Blair.
And good science to you too, Justin, Blair, and everyone out there. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Science. We are back yet again with more science because, as Justin said in the disclaimer, science continues to march on and on and on every week. Studies that are always so interesting, things that are fascinating to consider. Think about how are they going to affect our lives? A lot of them won't even, but it's just neat to learn about things, right? Learning is just fun. It's great.
I like to
cocktail parties.
learn.
Yeah, I like to learn.
Everything
too.
that I've brought today might actually affect your life or has already or is currently.
Ooh. Okay, well, what I brought for the show, this week's show, we got a great show, right? I have stories about male contraception.
What's that?
Meat-eating plants, and
I've got 3
a
kids.
Zika vaccine.
Wait,
you do have 3 kids, I know. I know. And Justin, what life-changing, world-changing things did you bring?
I have got childhood memes, Jekyll and Hyde all in my head, and how some people think dogs are people, while dogs do not.
Yeah, dogs are dogs, even though they know how to live with us. But anyway, Blair, what's in the animal corner?
Oh, I brought a whole lot of sex. I actually brought a deficit of sex. I brought fake sex. And I brought going extremely far lengths for sex.
Oh my goodness. Hopefully we're going to get to this male contraception before all the sex.
Yeah, it's a good
Because
idea.
if it comes after, it'll be too late.
It just could be too late.
As it always has been, male contraception, a little too little too late.
little too.
All right, let's jump right into it, you guys. First off the docket, I'm going to set a few things straight. Just a couple of things straight. People have been talking about the USDA since last Friday when they removed information databases about animal welfare documents from their website, made them not searchable through the web, although they are still available through the Freedom of Information Act. And, you know, I guess like the whole government now, everybody, you have to fax in your request. Nobody works with emails anymore.
No more links to click on things?
No
Then
more
it'll
links
never
to click
happen.
on things. Right. And that's a big question and a very large concern for a lot of animal welfare or animal rights proponents, people who do want to know, how are animals being treated in scientific studies? How are animals being treated in animal housing facilities? How are animals being treated in industrial agriculture facilities? There are all sorts of places where animals are. Inspectors go in to make sure the rules and regulations are being followed. Documentation ends up on the website and it's searchable, but not as of this last Friday. So a bunch of people have been very upset about this, very upset about the lack of transparency and what this potentially will mean for animal welfare as a whole. The outcry was so large that as of yesterday, February 7th at 12:15 p.m., the U.S. Department of Agriculture had released a statement about the removal of these reports from the APHIS website, Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service website. Quote, "The review of APHIS website has been ongoing, and the agency is striving to balance the need for transparency with rules protecting individual privacy. In 2016, well before the change of administration, APHIS decided to make adjustments to the posting of regulatory records. In addition, APHIS is currently involved in litigation concerning, among other issues, information posted on the agency's website. While the agency is vigorously defending against this litigation, in an abundance of caution, the agency is taking additional measures to protect individual privacy. These decisions are not final. Adjustments may be made regarding information appropriate for release and posting." So the question is, okay, what information will end up back on the website? That we do not know. Obviously, there is litigation ongoing, and we talk about individual privacy. One of the big issues that people are concerned about is the personal information of researchers who do animal research becoming available to animal rights activists. And so the safety of scientists is in question. And so there's a lot of ongoing stuff. I don't know if that is specifically the litigation there, but
it's much more likely. It's much more likely it is livestock companies, but
yes,
yeah, who don't like it to be known that they've gotten a red flag or something, because then they get monitoring by people who want to go in themselves and do some monitoring and do checkups on this sort of thing. So it's not just the science angle of it. And of course, the scientific community also wants these standards in place because those standards help get good science. Like if you have a good level of care for the animals in experimentation, which we've talked about.
Yes, stressed out animals mean extra variables. Yeah,
trying to get to these variables in there that are going to harm the output of the science that's being done. So they're absolutely necessary for the scientific community to maintain these, to do good science, but less necessary, I think, for other industries who are looking who have maybe a profit margin and may be able to make better profits by not spending as much time or effort or money to do the animal welfare thing.
So some of the facilities that are covered in the reports that have been removed include zoos, circuses, and animal transporters. There are 1,100 research labs, and the total number of facilities number is 7,800. So another large question here that is not addressed is, this is a department, as many other departments in the government, that is in transition, and the individual who has been put in charge of the transition team at the moment, Brian Klippenstein, he's the executive director of a group called Protest Harvest, is leading this transition team. And Protest the Harvest is a website or a group that lists among its objectives informing, quote, America's consumers, businesses, and decision makers about the threats posed by animal rights groups and anti-farming extremists. Yeah. So Protect the Harvest, the person who is now in charge of this transition and this year-long review of animal welfare records and the transparency issue, there are still questions in the air, but I wanted to make it aware. I wanted to make our audience aware of the transition that was in place, ongoing litigation, and the reasoning that the USDA has brought up for its removal of those documents. Documents will come back most likely.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate that this is not something that was pushed for by the scientific community. This is a different industry that has this interest, perhaps, in limiting access to information.
Potentially. We don't know that. Moving on, let's make the information clear. This last week, news headlines came out that Fukushima has had its largest radiation measurement ever. Oh my gosh. It's the end of the world. People are freaking out again about Fukushima.
So no more sushi ever, right?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
not at all. So I just want to clarify what has happened. They, TEPCO, the company that is in charge of the reactor 2 at Fukushima, the #1 power plant, and cleaning everything up, Tokyo Electric Power Company Holdings Inc. This is TEPCO. They're still trying to figure out what the status is, because since 2011, when the meltdown occurred, these reactor cores have been in meltdown situation, and they've been melting and releasing radiation and doing their thing. And they, in an ongoing manner, they test for radiation levels, and also they try and get closer to get pictures if they can. And so they've been able to actually get a telescoping arm with a camera on it into this reactor 2, this crippled #1 power plant. And they have this image that they've taken, and based on the static in the image, that's how they determined how much radiation was coming from this reactor, which I think is fascinating, using camera static as a measure of radioactivity. So this image that has been shared by TEPCO, there is a depression, kind of a melted hole in a grate at the bottom of the reactor, and they think that's where some stuff kind of all piled up and melted through. And there is
currently drilling its way to the core of the Earth, where it will release a magma explosion.
No, don't. No, I'm trying not to sensationalize. Right? No, that's not. That's basically it. It's just a little depression, and they actually see bits of the reactor cores, which they had not seen before. There are bits of black that they think are evidence of the melted cores that they have not actually ever seen before, which is great news. The radioactivity they just measured at a maximum of 530 sieverts per hour, but this is also right next to, like, the camera is right in the reactor core, looking like basically right next to the stuff that's releasing the radioactivity.
So the biggest
previous measurements have not been this close.
Right.
So you're going to get a bigger measurement.
Yeah.
Right?
Stuck thermometer in oven, got hottest reading in house.
Exactly. Exactly. So this is much higher than the previous high that has been measured, but this is a different method of measuring it. And the big take home is that this is not adding any more danger to the water. This is not adding any more danger to the situation. What it's going to affect is the cleanup method, whether or not TEPCO can actually go in and clean it up, whether or not they'll be able, at this kind of radiation, they probably still can't send robots in there. And so what it means is they might have to pull a Chernobyl on it and just encase it in concrete and let nature do its work.
And wait.
And so this is what we're looking at, is their process. And this is just get more information, but it does not change the ongoing story. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And I mean, based on a study we reported on the show last year, if we encase it like Chernobyl and then wait 30 years, we'll have some amazing flora and fauna living there on top of it.
That's right.
So everybody wins.
Bring back the biodiversity, right? Yeah. Nature takes its course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, the Fukushima news, not as big a deal, hopefully, as people might have thought it was based on headlines.
The headlines have been exceedingly misleading.
They're very misleading. Yes, this is the largest measurement that they've taken, but there are factors relating to how it is this big or why it is this big. It's not like it's all basically probably always been this big. They just haven't measured it like this before. And then moving on to our favorite virus that nobody seems to be talking about anymore because it's winter time here. It's winter in the northern hemisphere. So who cares about
mosquitoes.
mosquitoes? Yeah. Zika, right? We've talked about various vaccine efforts ongoing, and there is another one that has just gotten through some new trials, which is very exciting. This is a study that was published in Nature this week, and what it involves is instead of using DNA to encode vaccine components or broken bits of protein from the virus, little bits of virus to cause an antibody response in the body, which is how the vaccines work. This uses Zika virus mRNA, so messenger RNA that has been encapsulated. They took it and they wrapped it up in a fatty bathrobe, basically. They took these little mRNA bits, these little strands of mRNA, and then wrapped them up in lipids. So it's like soap lipids, right?
I love me a good lipid bathrobe.
That's right. And so what it can do now, so mRNA gets recognized and it reacts with stuff all the time. And so to get past that part of the problem, because they need to get it into the cell to have it actually react with the right immune stuff to actually cause a good vaccine reaction, right? You need a good immune response to create these antibodies so that there's immune memory formed. And so they have to get past the cell membrane first to be able to do that. And so they decided, okay, lipids will do. And these lipids do allow the mRNA to get into the cell. And then there's this really kind of backwards part of the story that they don't really understand how it works the way that it does. But these vaccines, these RNA vaccines, since they do interact with lots of stuff, mammalian cells internalize RNA very efficiently, more efficiently than they do DNA. They had to add to it another factor to keep it from getting degraded once it got into the cell. So there are all these RNA degrading enzymes, and they had to kind of wrap it up or add this little factor to the mRNA so that it would last longer. But the lasting longer could potentially, they thought, make it have less of an immune response, right? So if you're like, here, get in there and react with stuff, but we're going to make sure that you're not very nice and things in the cell don't want to react with you. So it's like this backwards thing where they want it to have a really great immune response, but they also don't at the same time. Anyway, it's very strange. They don't understand how it works, but the RNA, this mRNA actually has a 20 times effect than using DNA. So they could use 20 times less genetic material, mRNA, than they have to for DNA. So they use less stuff. It's a smaller amount of stuff. It gets in there, and it was able to stimulate an immune response in macaque monkeys and in mice. And so the next step is to figure out exactly what this nucleoside that they added to it, how it enables the molecule to evade immune recognition, but still allows it to have an immune response. They got to figure that out. But that one detail they don't understand, and they say they're going to work on that. But
that's a fantastic detail
right?
to work out. But I mean, it's in fact a fantastic effect, really. That if we could apply it elsewhere, we might have a 20-fold way of coming up with the cures of lots of things.
Yeah. So it's
vaccines for lots of things, at least.
Yeah, I mean, and if we can use mRNA instead of DNA, it might make it easier for us even to come up with vaccines, cures.
I love it when science doesn't know something. It always leads to something awesome.
Yeah, to something better. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, those are my intro stories. Justin, what you got?
Yeah. So when we interact with people, we often tend to mirror the other person's affect. whether we are doing this through our facial expressions, our gesticulations, or in the tone and cadence of our speech. We tend to pick up and copy some of the mannerisms of whoever it is we're talking to.
I have no idea what you're
you
talking about.
Sometimes often much subtler than what just happened. But a study by Michigan State University psychology researchers published online in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology now finds that when preschoolers hang out with each other, they tend to take on not just each other's affects, but each other's personalities. Our findings that personality traits are contagious among children flies in the face of common assumptions that personality is ingrained and can't be changed.
Who thinks that?
Well, I know that's exactly what I thought. This is Jennifer Whiting-Neal, Associate Professor of Psychology and co-investigator of the study, but it's exactly what I thought when I read that. I'm like, is that what they're teaching psychology students? Because
I've always felt when I'm around really negative people, I start to get really negative and I start complaining a lot. And when I'm around really positive people, I start noticing what's great about everything.
Yeah. So it goes on to say this is important because some personality traits can help children succeed in life while others can hold them back. The researchers studied 2 preschool classes for an entire school year, analyzing personality traits and social networks for one class of 3-year-olds and one class of 4-year-olds. Children whose play partners were extroverted or hardworking became similar to these peers over time. Children whose play partners were over-anxious and easily frustrated, however, did not take on these particular traits.
Oh,
I think that's sort of interesting. I would have expected that kind of could have gone together as well. But
and what happened when you put both of those together?
Extroverted, anxious, frustrated,
No, you put the
extroverted,
hardworking child in with the anxious, introverted one and just see what happens.
Yeah. You look at you, you're like, let's play with their child minds.
Yeah.
And
personality clash, maybe.
Come up, right? So Emily Durbin, study co-investigator and associate professor of psychology, said kids are having a bigger effect on each other than people may realize. Parents spend a lot of their time trying to teach their child to be patient, to be a good listener, not to be impulsive. Oh, is that what you're supposed to teach them? But this wasn't their parents or their teachers affecting them. This was their friends, their peers. It turns out 3- and 4-year-olds are being change agents themselves. So the study was limited in scope to children 3 and 4 years old, but kind of like your reaction, Blair, it's sort of easy to see how the transference of traits takes place, not just in these children, but throughout life, right? Totally. Not just how you were raised or how you intend to be in the world when you go out there, but how the people you interact with on your regular basis affects your personality.
I've always
you
thought,
hang out.
Yeah, it had to do with emotional intelligence too, right? How much you read other people and how much you can kind of blend in with the crowd and respond to cues. I've always thought those were kind of related.
Right. So how the personalities in a classroom, for instance, might determine the learning environment within that classroom.
Right.
How you work might determine your success, or who you work with might determine your success at work, but also who you hang out with outside of work might influence how you are at work, or it could be vice versa. Karen might come up a lot, like
Karen
affecting your home life, your relationships outside of work, because you can't stop talking about Karen.
There's probably a certain amount of how long children hang out together, because all of a sudden you go from being with the parents almost all the time, right? Or, to you're spending all of your time with your conspecifics. You're spending all of your time playing in a preschool setting, or at least, from 8 a.m. until noon, or however long your parents have you in preschool. I put my son Kai in preschool from like 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. the last couple of years so that I could have some time to work. So he was spending a majority of the day, or at least half of the waking hours of the day, with other kids. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that they influenced the way, he has his own strong personality, but they definitely influenced the way he interacts with people now.
Or he could have been a more of an influence on them. I mean, that's also possible, right? Like,
I'm
but
sure
Who
dominance
influences
has to do with
more?
it too, right? So who is dominant in a herd, in a group, in a pack, and then who is picking up after those traits? And usually it's not the anxious person that's the head of the pack.
Right.
Usually it's the extrovert and the
So here's
hardworking
what's sort
one.
of interesting, though, right? My takeaway from this is when we start looking at personalities somewhat being genetic and largely now, according to this, also being an environmental thing.
Totally.
Of course, this is the impressionable age where you're trying to take on and soak up the world around you. So it makes sense that they're easily absorbing each other's personalities, maybe just trying them on as opposed to really
You as the
having
father
them be embedded.
having 3 kids, you've probably seen each of your kids try on different personalities from time to time.
Right.
Kai totally did that. It was like he would suddenly, he'd be home one day, suddenly acting out, or he'd be really shy another time, or he would just, it was very obvious that he was trying on certain ways of being.
But think of this, and it's already, again, this is going to be somewhat redundant and that makes sense. And in ways we already do this, but what we might take from the study is a forward-looking thing of a personality immersion therapy in the future, where you might go to a camp full of extroverted people to become a little bit more extroverted yourself. And again, it could be things that already people do, like go to an artist retreat or join a writing club to capture more creative traits or be around more personalities. Or you could simply listen to this show and immerse yourself in scientifically curious conversation and become more scientifically curious yourself.
That is right. And as we are so curious about all these sex stories of Blair's, what time is it?
What time is it?
It's time for Blair's Animal Corner.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, it's that time again.
She loves our creatures, right and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. Wanna hear about animals? She's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels.
What you got, Blair?
Well, first I have some science about science. So every once in a while, researchers will take a look at research that has been done and run models on it. And this is important because it takes a look at the research that has been done. It identifies trends and it identifies holes in those research, areas that need more study. Well, a recent study from the University of Exeter was looking at climate change studies, specifically climate change and its impacts on animals. More specifically, climate change and its impact on marine animals. And what they found was that these studies are lacking sex.
Oh.
Less than 4% of climate change studies have tested the impact of ocean acidification on males and females separately, looking at how males and females react to ocean acidification and how it affects sexual behavior.
Well, that would just make everything so much more complicated.
Yeah, so the thing
Accurate.
about sex, here's the thing about sex.
Teach me about sex, Blair.
It's kind of where we all came from. And by we all, I mean humans, I mean vertebrates, I mean invertebrates, I mean everything that has a genome.
For the most part.
For the most part.
I mean, there's a lot of
the most part.
There's a lot of asexual reproduction.
Yeah, but then also there are
Like
organisms
coral.
that are mostly asexual that also exhibit sexual reproduction.
It's true.
It
Yeah.
bleeds in a lot of places. A lot of things. Most things with a genome. Sex is part of the deal. If that external fertilization, internal fertilization, more and more we're looking and we're seeing that there are selections being made and they're based on behavior. Even when animals are thousands of miles apart from each other and it just all goes into kind of the soup that is the ocean, it's all based on time and hormone response to make sure that these things find each other and create new things, right? So it would be a good place to start when looking at marine ecosystems and trying to determine species change. Unfortunately, it looks like this research tells us that it has not been the main focus of study. So a lot of studies look at species dynamics. They look at population shifts. They look at changes in dietary behavior. They look at all sorts of things, but not directly at a difference in response from one gender to another and direct impacts on sex. So, climate scientists, study your sex. Study animals, study marine animals and their gender differences in response to carbon dioxide levels. There we go.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if we're talking about like many fish species are different sizes. Males and females are different sizes, so they're going to be using resources differently. Invertebrates and mollusks will often have the same kind of size differential. So how much carbon dioxide is going to in the water is going to affect a female shell versus a male shell.
Absolutely. And we've talked on the show about how carbon dioxide affects hormone response too, how it affects receptors. And with broadcast spawners, that's what I was talking about before. If sperm isn't released when eggs are released, that's kind of end of the line there.
Yeah. That's a big oops.
That's a big oops. That's a big time oops.
Okay.
Yeah. And speaking of external fertilizers, I want to talk for a real quick second about.
And this is external fertilizers, not the fertilizer you put on your lawn or in.
So these are animals where the males and the females release their stuff. So the males release their sperm, the females release their eggs outside of their body, and those combine in the water. So there's often still mating in these species, which depending on the species, sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't. Usually it's just so they're right next to each other when it happens. So each individual knows whose genes they're pairing theirs with for the next generation. So when an animal is making that energetic investment, they often want to know what genes they're combining their genes with so that they know if it has a better chance in the next generation. But so sexual selection in external fertilizers is harder because it kind of includes a lot of guesswork, and it can include a lot of sneaking around. It can include a lot of whoopsies. So lampreys are external fertilizers, and researchers at Hokkaido University have found that they are also very promiscuous. Lampreys, males and females, gather at this spawning site, and it's quite a display. Single females mate with many, many, many males, many, many, many times. In a mating event, sometimes females will mate over 100 times with dozens of males. So,
wow.
Up until now, they haven't known how many eggs are released each time, why the female is mating so many times. That should not be necessary. It's more energy, and it increases the danger of predation. They're tired and they're exposed. So this research was looking at why on earth this female is mating sometimes over 100 times with dozens of males. They found that females are actually doing something called sham mating. Essentially, they're faking it.
They're faking it.
They're
Why?
going through the motions of mating, and then they're not releasing eggs. Why? Great question. Why? So to figure this out,
you're not really the one.
Yeah,
you're not the one.
I don't want to make you feel bad, but this just isn't working for me. So in order to test this, they had 2 experimental areas. In experiment A, 1 male and 1 female were put together, and in experiment B, 3 males and 1 female were put together. And then following each spawning event, eggs were removed with an aspirator and counted. So the researchers predicted that the proportion of sham mating would be lower in A because she only had 1 choice and she couldn't select her mate. So they think that this is a form of female mate selection. So they repeated the experiment 15 times, each using different females. Each female mated an average of 77 times, ranging from 20 to 196 times. On average, sham mating occurred about 65% of the time, ranging from 35 to 90%. And they found that sham mating increased with a larger number of males, while the number of eggs released on each occasion fell. So it looked like the males often released sperm in sham mating. They were completely fooled by it. But as we've talked about before on the show, sperm is pretty cheap, so it's like not a big deal.
It's not as big of a deal.
It's not a big deal.
I don't quite know if fooled.
Yeah.
Yeah, I characterize that.
Yes. And anyway, this was consistent with their hypothesis. They think that the female lampreys, they're choosing their mates. The other thing they also looked at was one thing that the females might be selecting for, which is body size. The males wrap their tail around the female's tail in mating, and previous research showed that reproductive success varies depending on the male to female body size ratio. They found here, in fact, that the ratio affected sham mating. So if he was too small for her, she did not release any eggs.
Well,
And
that
in
makes
this
sense.
case, yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Because you would assume the larger-tailed male would be older. And if you're a little bit older, chances are you've survived longer or are just more robust, or a combination of the two.
Mhm.
And that combination of being robust or having just survived out there in the wide open for as long as you have.
You got mad skills.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. So their expectation is that body size, nest building abilities, and other qualities are actually being assessed by these females. And this is kind of unusual because there's not a whole lot of studies showing where females select in external fertilization. So this, it's not the males competing with each other to get access to a female, which is more what we're used to with external mating. So this is highly unusual in terms of previous studies about this. So it opens kind of a door to new ways of looking at mate selection, particularly in external fertilization. And future studies can look at all of the different variables of a male and the amount of sham mating that a female does. And then they can kind of start to see what actually is causing the female to either release eggs or participate in sham mating. So pretty interesting stuff.
It's very interesting stuff. And lampreys are just interesting to begin with. They are
Oh, they're so cute.
so cute. They're like
Look at those. They're just trying to give you a kiss.
they're like eels, except they have this tubular mouth that opens onto these scraping and grating teeth.
Yeah. Adorable.
It's-
Just in
yeah.
time for Valentine's Day.
In time for Valentine's Day, save a sea lamprey today.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe we should have saved this promiscuous sea lamprey story for.
Oh, that's right. This is our
for next week.
TWIS Valentine's Day. You're right. I should have saved all these stories for Valentine's Day. Oh, well. Maybe there will
No,
be
it's
more
okay.
next week in science.
Hopefully, there will be more romance in science next week. We have come to the end of the first half of the show. Yeah, next Wednesday is going to be Valentine's Day. But do you know, I think today is the 100th anniversary of Einstein's cosmological constant.
Oh, no.
So yeah, we are at the centennial of Einstein's gravitational constant for his.
And our next show will
his-
be the
his-
day
his
after.
field equation. Yes.
Will be the day after Valen Twist Day.
Valentine's Day is next week. I'm talking about this week,
Oh.
right now. This
Yeah.
is
Oh.
yesterday, today. Yeah. Yes. Anyway, a little bit of trivia there for you. We are going into the break right now, and we'll be coming back in just a few moments with lots more stories. Mail. Yeah, we'll be talking about things.
We're going to talk about some stuff.
We've got empathy, contraception, and Jekyll and Hyde coming up in the second half. So stay tuned for more This Week in Science. Just a few minutes.
Can't explain the things you heard with more than intuition.
Hey, everybody. I want to say thank you so much. We are in February, and I hope everyone is enjoying their TWIS calendars. Let me know if you got it. Send a picture, tweet a picture, let people know that you are enjoying your TWIS calendar. And I just thank you for ordering those. Blair, thanks for making them. And I'm glad that we sold out again. Thank you, everybody. Also, TWIS has other merchandise that you might enjoy. So if you head on over to twis.org, you will be able to find our Zazzle store link. Twis.org is basically the one-stop shop for all of the things you consider TWIS. There are links to all of Blair's waving a calendar, last year's calendar.
This is a mouse pad.
Ooh, Blair has a mouse pad. That's what she's waving at me. I was like, what is going on there?
I got a mouse pad.
Blair got a TWIS mouse pad with some art from the 2016 Blair's Animal Corner This Week in Science calendar. And this one-stop shop, you can listen to episodes. You can also find out show announcements, and you can click on that Zazzle store link. And if you click on the Zazzle store link, it will take you to our Zazzle store where you can find all sorts of neat merchandise, lumbar pillows. Look at this one. It's a TWIS lumbar pillow with Blair's Animal Corner's grizzly bear picture on it, hand painted by Blair, but not the pillow hand painted. The original
That wouldn't be
picture,
comfortable.
no, but lumbar pillows. That sounds lovely and comfortable. Also, mouse pads, t-shirts, hats, mugs, tote bags, sweatshirts, many polo shirts, necklaces, many items with the TWIS logo and art that has been lovingly hand painted by Blair. Artistic creations from the Animal Corner, the queen of the Animal Corner. That's right. So if you want something for yourself or for a friend, head on over to Zazzle. Additionally, you can help us out by just sending us money. And you can do that by clicking on the donate button that is on the main page. It's super easy, big yellow donate button. Click on it and it will take you through a simple process that uses PayPal at its back end to manage the money. Also, we use Patreon for many of our supporters. So if you click on Patreon, you will be taken to our Patreon page where you can again click on the Become a Patron button and become part of that community of people supporting us at various levels for each episode and receiving fun little gifts for their level of support. And also, for those people who do support us on Patreon, occasionally you get early glimpses of videos that we produce or special events or special newsletters that don't go out to everybody else. So there's special perks to being a Patreon supporter. So head on over to Patreon. You can go there easily by going to patreon.com/thisweekinscience, or if you just remember twis.org, click on the Patreon link and that will take you there. If you are unable to support us financially to help us produce this show on a weekly ongoing basis, we do hope that you will help us continue to grow the show. And we can definitely use your support in sharing the show with people, telling people about TWIS. Go to Twitter right now and tweet that you're listening to TWIS. Post a link of the most recent show. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, why don't you make a Facebook post or a tweet or an Instagram or a Snapchat or something about your favorite segment of the show. Everything is broken down in our descriptions thanks to our friend Fada, who breaks all of the stories down so you can get to the stories at the exact time point and you can share those, which is pretty cool. So there are lots of different ways, but really, however you can help, it really all does help keep this show going. We appreciate your support, and we really could not do this without you. Thank you.
Skeptic, yeah, I can't believe you believe in that sham. We disagree, but I still give a damn. The ramification of treatments from holy men leaves me slightly queasy deep down in the abdomen. Convinced that the lives that they lead need adjusting. They drive to the bookstore and blindly start trusting the miracles and cures all laid down in black ink, never even bothering to stop and think.
And we are back with more this week in science.
Yeah, we are. And Justin, what'd you bring? What you got?
I'm gonna switch. I'm gonna change the order that we got in the rundown here and talk about astrocytes.
Okay.
Huh? What's an astrocyte,
What
Kiki?
is that?
An astrocyte is a support cell in the brain. It's like a glial cell, an astrocyte.
It's a glial cell.
It's a brain
Absolutely.
thing. Got it.
Mhm.
They are far more abundant, larger, and diverse in the human brain compared to other species. They may be part of and parcel with our bigger brain and our increase of intelligence, as they do this maintenance on neurons that we know to keep things healthy and interactive. And a healthy brain, astrocytes are vital for normal functioning, providing nutrients to support neuron viability, releasing factors that aid formation of connections between nerve cells, known as synapses, as well as many other important functions. As we learned from episode 601 earlier this year, astrocytes shift their regional gene expression patterns upon aging to important brain regions for memory and movement. Those are areas that, as we age, also start to decline. So that's sort of interesting. This is a repair thing, but it seems to be changing and showing up in different expressions as we age. Back in 2013, scientists isolated human glial progenitors, the cells in the central nervous system that give rise to astrocytes, from human brain tissue. Then they transplanted these into the cells, into the brains of neonatal mice. As the mice matured, the human glial cells outcompeted the host's native glial cells, while at the same time leaving the existing neural network intact. These mice became more rapid learners. Both acquired new associations and performed a variety of tasks significantly faster than mice without the human astrocytes. Astrocytes has also been long implicated in pathology, range of human neurodegenerative diseases or injuries, including Alzheimer's, Huntington's, Parkinson's disease, brain trauma, spinal cord injury, and as they seem to gather in larger numbers around injury and inflammation sites. That's been noted. This study, which I'm finally getting to, published recently in Nature and led by researchers at the University of Melbourne and Stanford University, looked into why, in some circumstances, the astrocytes appear to be having this beneficial neuronal viability connectivity effect, and in others appear to have toxic effects on neurons. This is researcher Dr. Shane Lidlow. Following nerve damage, astrocytes form scar tissue that can help in the regeneration of severed fibers. But we have also discovered that under certain conditions, they can turn, become negatively reacting, causing cell death. Many decades, the trauma and neurodegeneration research focus has been on neurons. Researchers are excited by the discovery of these neurotoxic reactive astrocytes because for the first time, these findings imply that acute injuries of the retina, brain, spinal cord, and chronic neurodegenerative diseases may be all much more treatable and even reversible than had been previously considered. Researchers now can look at new pathways for dealing with neurological diseases and injuries by targeting toxic astrocytes. In addition to the neurones and neuropsychiatric diseases or oligodendrocytes, as for the instance of multiple sclerosis, ultimately there's still hope that one day it may be possible to switch back astrocytes from the toxic to the helper state, which is now a long-term target for Dr. Lillo and colleagues. So a fantastic discovery or drill down on mechanism or identification of an aspect of astrocytes that sort of has weaved a thread through a number of stories that we've covered in the past. And how amazing too that, because this, of course, as we have the thread going back, this could not only help reverse diseases, but this could be an angle of targeting regular loss of cognitive and motor function as we age, making us more cognitively healthy and maintain our physical activities as we get older and older. And
so if we can figure out exactly how to target them, what makes them special, what makes them toxic. I mean, now we know that there are these toxic ones.
This is part of that mechanism, for sure.
Yeah. What does that?
Yeah.
And we need to know why there are these forms of the astrocytes, and that'll be a big part of helping it, for sure.
And also make us one step closer to creating sentient mice. Which is, I think, equally as important.
You don't think mice are currently sentient?
Well, okay. Let's say increase.
They do run the simulation.
Increase their sentience, their brain, individual brain power. Collectively, they're much more brilliant than us, of course.
Fair enough.
What were you going to say? You were going to and then I interrupted you.
Oh, that was it about the sentient mice thing.
Nice. I love this study. This is so fascinating. Astrocytes, glia in general are just so much more, there's so much more to them than we used to think. It used to be like, oh, these are these cells and they help nutrients go to the neurons, and they kind of, it's the packing material that keeps the brain from getting injured if you hit your head or you move your head around too much. It's like packing popcorn in a box.
Right.
It helps.
And also
we're finding out it's so much more important.
Also in episode 601, it had been previously considered that we just had a certain number throughout our life, and that they were the same ones, because the numbers seem to remain pretty consistent throughout a lifespan. But we've also since learned that they do reproduce themselves, and that they can actually show up in the glial can show up in greater numbers in certain areas as we age. There's a whole bevy of things now that we're drilling down on with these helper cells that go rogue and become toxic, that we may actually be able to affect some significant change to a large array of diseases. I mean,
what would affect significant change to a lot of things?
What?
Male contraception.
Ooh, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that a little bit. So, male contraception, really currently the only thing that is readily available are vasectomies. Right? You can have a little snip, and the little swimmers don't make it past the snip point, the cut in the vas deferens, and that they don't make it to the intended target, right? So is there a better way? Is there a reversible way? Something that's more reversible, more easily? I mean, I know some vasectomies reverse themselves, which is like, oops, surprise. But
could you just tie those in a slip knot so that I can just give a tug and undo the...
Researchers are trying to figure out how to make something better. And it sounds like they've come up with something similar to a vasectomy, but that actually might work better. They've created a special hydrogel
Oh, so this
reported in-
involves a giant needle
this
to
involves
that area.
a needle injected into the vas deferens, but it's an easier procedure than surgery. So this is still invasive, but not as invasive. And it's also not a pill or something that a male would forget to take. So, published in Basic and Clinical Andrology, they're reporting that, and this is a team from UC Davis working at Davis's California National Private Research Center. So, hey, Davis, shout out to you. Vasal gel. There we go. Vasal gel. And this is a hydrogel. So a gel that contains a bunch of water in it. But the way that it works is very interesting. It's a polymer. A polymer, so this is a protein that will hold a bunch of fluid. So it's a gel, and it gets injected into the vas deferens and forms a spongy, high molecular weight hydrogel in the vas deferens that allows fluids like semen, the seminal fluid, to pass, but not sperm cells. So the whole
It's like a cheesecloth.
It's like a cheesecloth or a strainer or something that can be, it blocks the passage of larger things, but the fluids can get past.
It's like a coffee filter.
Exactly. A coffee filter for keeping the sperm out or keeping the sperm in this case, as it shall be. And what they did is they tested it on 16 male rhesus monkeys that lived in outdoor group housing, lived with a bunch of females. They injected this into their vas deferences and then let them cohabitate with the females as if nothing had happened for an entire breeding season. Nobody conceived any babies. Whereas in the past, both male and female monkeys, all of them who had been involved in the study, had mated successfully prior. So it wasn't that they couldn't do it that they weren't trying to do it, but the gel worked.
And it's reversible, you said?
Yeah, and so this is something.
So there's like an enzyme that you would then inject in, and it would eat it up. Or
yeah, so they're saying that this is something that is reversible in these, or at least it was in these rhesus monkeys, but they need to make sure it's reversible in other mammals before it's tested on humans. So
it's just a temporary ban.
It's a temporary ban.
As long as you want it.
Yeah, so they basically, and it's not even an enzyme. They used sodium bicarbonate solution.
Oh, how natural.
Natural sodium bicarb. There it goes away.
That's pretty cool. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the nice thing about it being reversible too is that you don't have to say, okay, I'm done having kids.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an IUD for a woman, right? You can be like, this is my 3 to 5 year plan. No kids right now. This is great. This is perfect.
It's not hormonally based, so it won't change any hormone balance. The body continues working as it normally does, and the sperm presumably just get endocytosed away, get digested by the body and recycled for use another day.
I do always worry, though.
I was going to say the problem here is that we don't know how long it lasts.
Oh,
so
yeah,
they did this for a single breeding season.
Yeah.
I imagine if you're going to have a needle near your testicles, you probably don't want to do that once a year even. Right. You're probably going to want that to be a much more longer
every 3 to 5 years, probably.
And 2 other points, of course, it doesn't prevent the STDs.
Diseases. That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
As well as you also have to trust that your partner actually had that done.
Right. So this would be something
already.
This would be something for a healthy monogamous relationship would be the idea behind this, right? Just like IUDs don't prevent disease.
So this will apply. This will apply to a monogamous, healthy relationships where no children are wanted. So it's going to apply to about 5% of the population.
No, I don't think that's true. I think that also, there's enough people out there that want a safeguard that it would also be useful.
Yeah.
I think it's the more we can provide a realistic, long-term, more effective way for males to be involved in this conversation, the better.
I think it's good that it gives men a choice about their own bodies. That they.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Wait, what? Why is that? Oh, geez. No, I think that's fair. That men should have be able to have control over what their own bodies effect is outside of their own bodies. I think this is an important step for men.
Do you want to talk about dogs?
Let's move on to dogs.
Okay, yeah,
Maybe we
let's
should
just
talk about dogs now.
Before I'm allowed to keep speaking. Okay. Human empathy. It's what allows society to flourish. When we empathize with others, we are actually seeing them as being like us. Our self-identity is largely based on who it is we empathize with. Right? The more empathetic we are, the more our own identity can expand to others who may not be so similar to ourselves. And people with higher emotional empathy are able to put themselves into the shoes of another, regardless of what shoe size the other person wears or even how many feet they have. According to this study from the University of Helsinki, empathetic people interpret dogs' facial expressions more intensely. Empathy affected assessment of dogs' facial expressions even more than previous experience with dogs, probably because the face is a biologically important stimulus for humans. Our earlier studies have showed, however, that when considering the entire body language of dogs, previous experience with dogs increases the importance.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Or increases in importance. This is being explained by postdoctoral researcher Mia Maria Kujala, which is now my new favorite name. If I have another daughter, I'm going to name her Mia Maria Kujala. or I might just rename one of my existing daughters.
One of your existing daughters.
Mia Maria Kujala. I love that name. It's sort of alliterative, and then Kujala at the end. It's very fun. Based on previous results, researchers knew that people with higher emotional empathy evaluated other people's expressions more quickly, accurately, and often also more intensely. However, Kujala notes that it is possible that they overinterpret the expressions of dogs. Empathy speeds up and intensifies the assessment of dogs' facial expressions, but defining the accuracy of such assessments is currently totally unreliable.
That's what I was going to ask you, is if they then had animal experts
Very good question.
interpret those same expressions.
So they did, and that was sort of what was interesting about this. So animal experts did better than the baseline on this.
Good.
Right? But the highly empathetics seem to more quickly and possibly correctly do these identifications as well.
Correctly.
Well, I mean, correctly is still vague in this, though, because we don't absolutely, like, part of it too is those who were like dog trainers were more likely to identify what a happy dog looked like. But that might just be a dog that in their mind is going to perform the right task, or seems like it's listening or paying attention or less distracted. Like, who knows what all, because then you got not only is the dog thing unknown, but then the human rationality is, we can't do human studies. These things are totally unreliable. However, Darwin himself noticed similarities in mammals' expressions. So a common evolutionarily preserved language of facial gesturing does exist. An angry face is an angry face across much of the mammalian kingdom, right? This is like when somebody's like baring of teeth, scrunching of face. Like, these are things where, nature has found a good communication device, and it's kind of well preserved throughout much of this animal kingdom.
I was thinking about pain scales. Pain scales in mammals are a very easy thing to measure.
Yeah. The Animal Mind research group has previously demonstrated that dogs clearly recognize the threatening expressions of both humans and other dogs.
Mhm.
They gazed intensively at threatening dogs, but quickly looked away from threatening animals, or from threatening humans.
Right.
So they were like, oh, that dog looks mad. I better watch it carefully. But when a human looked angry, they were like, oh.
I'm gonna go be over there.
Yeah. Also, human subjects were good at recognizing the threatening expressions of dogs and considered them much more intense than similar expressions in humans. Contrast, people assessed happy faces more intensely in the case of humans than dogs. Researchers are suggesting that this is because we may have a tendency to consider the faces of our own species to be generally more pleasant than those of another species. So we might more readily assess a happy face in a human than we can in a dog. Although, again, this is where it comes in. The people people may find it more difficult to recognize happiness in dogs based on their facial expressions, but those who had experience in dog training estimated happy expressions of dogs as happier, even happier than other people did.
That's interesting.
So
This was
experience
based on
gets you to the-
pictures?
yeah, pictures.
Huh.
Not actually being with the dog makes it easier if you just have
Right,
pictures
and that's
you can
also
control the expressions, and that's
Yeah. And
Like-
they kept that little caveat in there that if the dog trainers could see like wagging tails or how a dog was walking around, that their numbers could largely increase if they were getting a larger picture and more information. But this was just all facial expression.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's very similar to, I think it's very similar to maybe people you maybe understand their facial expressions better because you've had more experience with them. And so you can really get the micro expressions much more easily of a friend as opposed to a stranger. And a strange dog, or never having come across dogs, if you see an expression that looks threatening, you're going to be concerned about the teeth in that dog's mouth and wondering how threatening it really is. And so they'd be less likely to be like, oh, that's cool. But if you're experienced with dogs, you go, yeah, that's nothing. I've seen way worse.
Yeah.
Unless all of your experience with dogs is having been bitten many times. Then it doesn't matter. It's
Then
not
it
that
doesn't
just
matter.
dogs are
No good.
bad.
Yeah, no
Right.
good.
Yeah, so there's
So-
lots of body cues aside from the face that you can look at and you can see what's going on. There's wagging tail, of
They
course,
didn't
but the
do
big
that.
thing is the hackles, right? So if their
their
hair
hair
is up and they're kind of in a hunched position, that's not a happy dog. But thinking about their face alone, I really pay a lot of attention to eyebrows. They're so expressive, such a huge part of a human. If you try to figure out what a human is feeling and you cut the picture right here, it's extremely hard to figure out
Oh, yeah.
You
what's
don't
going
see
on
the
with them.
eyebrows, yeah.
The eyebrows are a huge part of expression in dogs too. So Fada is asking if dogs smile. So a smiling dog, a dog with the corners of their mouth up and their mouth open, can be very different with their eyebrows like this, or their eyebrows like that, or their eyebrows like very bright and excited, right? So that's a huge difference, just the eyes, right?
Yeah,
Our
'cause
eyes.
I've seen dogs that when they are angry, they growl and they bare their teeth, right? This is a signal across mammals. Baring your teeth is a sign of aggression. It's basically humans when we smile is the real difference. But
Right.
some dogs do this as well. Some dogs, like Tom Merritt's dog, Django, used to growl and get its teeth wide. That was its smile and its laugh. You know, that
Oh my
dog,
gosh,
it was
yeah.
this very threatening thing, and he'd have to say, "No, dog's totally fine." And
I was
then,
gonna say,
and then
we
we have
dog to
another,
a comedy club where everybody's like laughing. Would they be like, "Oh my gosh, all these threatening humans
right? And then there's
baring their teeth at me"?
and then another friend's dog. She plays with her whiskers, and the dog does this very forward tooth baring where she just shows the front of her teeth, but that's her smile. So that, like, knowing the dog, you know that the
Yeah.
teeth are not threatening, but generally showing of teeth are threatening. So it's
Right.
it's I think there's a lot. This is interesting, and I think you're right. The body language would have been the thing to really give it more strength.
Yeah. But I think also being able to measure it for accuracy based on some baseline. So to know, for example, based on context, that the animal that you were taking a picture of was happy because they got one of their favorite things, right? And then showing that picture to people and seeing if they could properly judge it. So having a way to kind of score it against what you know is actually happening in that dog's brain would, I think, help strengthen a study like this.
And I assume I didn't, I assumed that was part of it. Although I think what they were also saying is even with that, is that dog like happy? Is happy even the right word? Like, that was sort
Basically,
of the thing.
Dogs are not people.
Dogs are not people. So yeah, I mean, you can know
mood
threatened
to an extent.
You can know content. You can know even scared. You can know comfortable. You can know uncomfortable. But to be able to know what happy is,
My dog's so happy.
I mean,
really.
that's really tough. It's just kind of like you can say, "Oh, my dog knows when I'm sad." They might.
Yeah.
But they also might just be responding to stimuli that you don't normally give.
Yeah.
Because when you're sad, you're not petting them.
Right.
You're ignoring
or you're
them.
petting them like compulsively, and they're like, oh,
Yeah,
God,
yeah.
they must have had a bad day. I've never, my ear doesn't even itch, but I'm not going to walk away because then they're, gosh knows what they'll do.
Yeah. Hey, you guys want to know about carnivorous plants?
Yeah, always.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So carnivorous plants are so neat. They eat other insects, right? And some plants will even eat small animals. Plants are amazing, but not very many plants evolved this ability to break down exoskeletons of insects to be able to have enzymes that could digest bone and hard tissue. Chitin. Now, this is a big development, and it's been shown before that not all of the various species of carnivorous plants are closely related to each other. So it was
convergent evolution, eh?
Yeah, so it is an example of convergent evolution, and so a carnivorous plant in Australia is more related to just regular old plants in Australia than it is to carnivorous plants in Asia or in America. So this is something that has arisen multiple times independently. So yes, convergent evolution. What exactly happened? And so what this recent study has shown is that the ancestors, all of them had genes for all of these genes for digesting the chitin, the exoskeleton of the insects that they eat. They come from this. It's all the same genes originally. It's all the same enzyme pathways, and so in each case of evolution, this independent evolution, these plants that became carnivorous all used the same gene pathway, just with slight tweaks to create this chitinase, this chitin eating enzyme. And the researchers say the chitinase that was originally probably evolved in defense from fungal chitin. So it was then repurposed. So these plants were being attacked by funguses. And so they were trying to protect themselves from funguses, and a mutation that allowed them to digest the chitin of the fungus that was attacking them, but could then be mutated again to allow them to break down chitin in insect exoskeletons. And so this is just a similar gene that comes from much further back that was then independently in each species used for the same job.
Gateway mutation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The next step.
The researcher says the very same genes from non-carnivorous ancestors have been recruited for carnivorous purposes. Yeah, and this is I guess the first study of its kind, really, to find how this repurposing of these genes has led to this very similar effect. And something that was very interesting in this study, to be able to figure out what the genetic changes were and how they got there, they actually looked at genes in the Australian pitcher plant, what genes were active in the leaves that were capable of digesting insects versus what genes were active in the leaves of the plant that are actually able to photosynthesize. So these pitcher plants do have photosynthetic parts, and they also have the insect digesting parts. And so different genes are active in the different tissues. And so that's where they went first to sequence the DNA and to see what types of genes were getting turned on or off in each type of leaf. And they found that certain genes are only on in the pitcher leaf or preferentially in the pitcher leaf. And some of these very likely have to do with the trap development. Yeah. Lots of cool
Very
stuff
cool.
here in this study. And carnivorous plants. Totally cool. They're very unique, yet they're all the same. Yeah. Right? Convergent evolution. Carnivorous plants.
Evolution.
So great. Hey Blair, you got is there one more sex story in there?
Kind of. I put a little of a sexy spin on it. So there is a new record holder for the world's longest freshwater migration. The Dorado catfish goes about 7,200 miles. It's about 11,600 kilometers just to lay its eggs.
Wow.
Yeah. So they go from the Amazon River estuary to spawning areas in or near the Andes Mountains. Yeah, they do all that and then they die there. They don't return. The newborn catfish go all the way back down and then all the way back up.
So this salmon is like the this catfish is the South American salmon.
Yeah, which they're like, take that, salmon.
I'll swim farther than you
7,000 miles. That's right. Yeah. So that's just a couple of things that actually are something to look at based on this, besides just having a new record holder. This means that there is a extremely long area over which these animals have to move through. So just like you make salmon ladders to get over dams and other things, this is something that we might have to start looking at to get these catfish to where they need to go. There are a lot of barriers, and there could be more barriers that spring up into existence over the next decades, trying to keep these catfish away from where they're trying to go. So, or not intentionally trying to keep them out, but that could end up messing up their ability to get where they need to go.
Right.
So a migration that long means a lot of workarounds on dams and other obstructions. Yeah. And then one last thing that I wanted to talk about today, just because we talked a lot this year, I think specifically already, about how wrong we were about birds and a sense of smell, particularly birds of prey and their sense of smell. And I loved Kiki's explanation of why that happened, which was just that their olfactory clump of neurons were stuck to the brain case, right?
Couldn't get loose.
They couldn't get loose. Yeah, the olfactory bulb came apart from the rest of the brain, and so we never saw it. And we said, "Oh no, they're cool.
So
they can't smell."
I spent a lot of my career thinking that birds of prey can't smell, but now a new study in zoo biology has been looking at olfactory enrichment in birds of prey. So now that we know that birds of prey, yes, can indeed smell, they have taken peppermint scent, put it on packages with food in it so that the birds of prey recognize peppermint smell as a precursor to food, and then they can give these birds of prey peppermint scented sham packages with nothing inside that makes them use their predator drive, break it apart, all that good stuff. Birds of prey are a group of animals that are very hard to give enrichment to. They're not going to run on a wheel. You can't let them fly thousands of miles for migration because they're in captivity. So you have to find a way to get these animals to move around and use natural behaviors So now that we know that they can indeed smell and also can associate smell with things, and that encourages them to explore new items based on that smell conditioning, this could be a huge breakthrough in caring for captive birds of prey.
More sham science.
More sham. No.
Yes, sham matings and sham packages, all real science.
Here's a sham package. Open it.
A shackage, if you will.
Shamage. So much shamage. Hey, this last week, NASA also came out with some interesting new data. They have released preliminary results on their study of the year in space and how spaceflight stresses out the human body. There are many different things that they have looked at, but basically they had astronaut Scott Kelly, who spent 340 days on the International Space Station, while his twin brother,
The twins.
Mark, stayed here on Earth. And so they've been analyzing samples that were taken from each twin before, during, and after the trip. And the results preliminary results have been released. They were discussed at the annual Investigators Workshop for NASA's Human Research Program in Texas. So they see differences. They found
Who's taller?
Well, Scott's telomeres were longer. His levels of DNA methylation were lower in comparison to his twin. A different team found differences in the microbiomes. So Scott's digestive tract had a major shift in the ratio of Firmicutes to Bacteroidetes bacteria. So not really in overall diversity, but the two dominant bacterial groups kind of shifted in which one was more dominant, which is interesting. They don't really know why that would have happened. And in both of these differences
Could
that
it
they've
be
seen,
the stress of being like tied to a firecracker and launched into space and then being like, I'm in
Maybe.
space.
Could be
Oh my
space food.
God. So far from home. I got to do a
Dehydrated
re-entry.
foods.
I'm eating food out of a tube and pooping into
Exactly.
one. Like that would possibly cause a little
So
stress.
yes. But anyway, on these things, measures returned to pre-flight levels very soon after getting back to Earth. So things went back to normal. So telomeres back to normal, bacteria back to normal. All that stuff, which is kind of interesting. So questions now, what is going on with the gut bacteria in space? We don't know.
And you said his
and what does that mean
telomeres were longer?
His telomeres were longer.
Wow.
That doesn't seem right.
Right? You would
That
think
doesn't
they
make
should be
sense.
shorter from the
Yeah.
stress, right?
From the stress.
Or unaffected at all, as I would think.
Or unaffected, right?
Maybe
Yeah.
being in such a controlled environment means you're not eating garbage. You have to exercise, right? That's part
Yeah.
of the deal. It's very regimented. It's very scheduled.
So maybe being on the schedule they were, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Our bodies are cyclic in nature, so maybe being on a regimented cycle had something to do with it, but I don't know. The researchers who worked on that part, Susan Bailey from Colorado State University in Fort Collins, said that result was the exact opposite of what they thought was going to happen.
Yeah, of course.
And
That's
the fact that
fascinating.
then the telomeres they got chopped off again after he came back to Earth.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, they went back to normal length. They went back to
What the
pre-fight
what?
levels.
I didn't think that they could do that.
Right?
Which is-
What? See, I was
There's a
gonna
little bit
say
that
now
needs
we
to
just
be
have to
learned
see who dies first, but if their telomeres went back to the normal length,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, and so then so DNA methylation we know is epigenetics, and it changes the way that genes get expressed in DNA. And methylation decreased in Scott's DNA. So the wrapping of certain segments, binding it up so that genes don't get expressed, basically. It decreased when he was in flight, increased in Mark over the same period on Earth. And then when Scott came back to Earth, levels for both men returned close to pre-flight levels, which again is weird. They went opposite and then came back to the same for this methylation when they came back, when they were reunited. So, yeah.
And it felt so good. So longer telomeres in space.
So good. Yeah. Longer telomeres.
Potential longer life in space, right?
Maybe.
I mean, based on that one
this is
thing
that
that you can
hypothesis,
look at
right?
and just connect to everything else that's happening in space. But yeah.
Yeah.
Did both twins qualify to be astronauts, or did only one go through the process?
I think they're both astronauts.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they are both astronauts.
Yeah.
That's a really good question.
That would definitely be a lot of extra variables if they weren't both astronauts.
I
Because
think they're both astronauts.
They're both astronauts.
okay,
That's
that's great. Then. Wow, how fascinating!
Yeah, but he stayed on Earth.
Right.
His brother went to space.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. So yeah, interesting. There are many factors to be considered and discussed. I don't know how Mark lived his life, if he lived it as if he were on the ISS while on Earth.
Right. Eating
His
food out of
twin
a
brothers
tube.
up there. He's probably stressed.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah,
I
he's
just think
stressed.
everything about leaving the planet to me is stressful, though. Like,
Yeah.
So you're
people
not
that might be
excited to go to Mars, it sounds like.
some people might be excited and feel adventurous and inspired. To me, the whole concept is terrifying. It's just, I don't want to be in a little capsule looking that far away from where I have to go to get home. I don't even like being on in an airport waiting to go fly, let alone,
Well, that explains it.
yeah. It's that whole process of traveling far from home is so stressful.
It's not that you don't know where the gate is. I've learned something about you today. You just don't want to go.
I don't want to get on a plane. That's too far above. Although I like the view. I do like the view. If I'm going to space, I need a window seat.
Yeah.
I'll stare back at the Earth the whole time.
I think
just
they're
to
all
make sure
window
it's
seats.
still there.
Just to make sure it's still there. My final story for the night. How many times have you guys watched a movie or a TV show where somebody's looking at video footage or a photograph of something that happened? Usually it's like a crime thriller or something. And the actors are looking and they go, oh, they noticed something. And they ask the person to zoom in, enhance.
Yes. Oh
Right?
my God.
And I mean, we can only zoom in so much based on the resolution of images that, from the cameras and the lenses and the lighting
Right.
situation. There's only so much we can do.
Right.
Yeah. But now Google has done it again.
Hmm.
Google is doing it again. Google Brain has created software that interpolates information so that you can basically zoom in on things to figure out what is there. There are they use neural networks, 2 neural networks within this software. One is a conditioning network that tries to map the source image. Like if you have 64 source pixels, an 8 by 8 square, right? The conditioning network maps that source image against other high resolution images. And then it, according to this Ars Technica article, downsizes other high res images to 8 by 8 and tries to make a match. So the conditioning network is trying to fit the data, right? And then there's another network called the prior network, and it uses an implementation of something called Pixel CNN that works with the original image to add high resolution details into the original 8 by 8 image. So you've got one part of the network trying to match things and another trying to build things. And they work together to figure out what things are so that
then for no explainable reason, there's hands and arms in every picture.
No, not hands and arms, but this image is starting, the program is starting to be capable of recognizing things like eyebrows, eyes, lips on faces and images, being able to identify, the software is able to identify aspects of furniture in rooms to be able to start putting rooms together. There are many, it's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect, but this is a step on the road to potentially taking data, and it's very fuzzy data, and turning it into something more accurate. The question here, though, the big question that is raised is, this is the images that are produced by this software are artificial images. They are not the original image. This is a made up picture based on what the software thinks is there. And so potentially in future real crimes that occur, if a detective is using this Google Brain technology to be able to enhance an area of a crime scene, to be able to see somebody's face on a video display, it could display incorrect information.
We have a low resolution image of the traitor, the mole within our ranks. Oh, really? It's low resolution. Oh, it's no problem. Yes, we're going to put it through a computer, and over a period of time, we'll get a high resolution image of that low resolution image, and then we'll be able to identify the perpetrator. Oh, okay. Well, I guess I still have time. Click. It's done. Oh, no. It's Stephen Accounting? Oh, that's so, I always suspected him because he kind of, much as kind of sort of looks like me, it's also refreshing to know that we finally got the mole within the organization. Whew. Oh boy, that was close. What? No, I mean, it's great that we have this technology now.
Yeah, but so now not just the NSA can do this, like Fado was saying in the chat room. Now we all can. Now we all can use image enhancement to find out who was lurking outside your house at 3 a.m.
Oh, look, it was Queen Nefertiti. Who'd have thunk? That's good to know.
And we have we hit that? That was my last story. Are we done? Did we do it?
I'm done.
I think so.
We have done it. Okay, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We have made it to the end of another show. And I just want to say thank you to our Patreon sponsors. Thank you to Chris Clark, Paul Disney, G. Burton Lattimore, John Ratnaswamy, Richard Onemus, Byron Lee, EO, Jared Lysette, Kevin Parachan, Andy Groh, Keith Corsell, Jake Jones, Gerald Sorrells, Ulysses Adkins, Derek Nickel, Dave Friedel, James Randall, Eric Schwab, Bob Calder, Mark Massaros, Edward Dyer, Trader 4, Brian Hedrick, Layla Marshall Clark, Charlene Henry, Larry Garcia, Randy Mazuka, Tony Steele, Jared Onago, Steve DeBell, Ksenia Volkova, Daryl Harun Sarang, Melissa Mosley, Alex Wilson, Jason Scheiderman, Greg Guthman, Dave Neighbor, Jason Dozier, Matthew Litwin, Eric Knapp, Jason Roberts, Richard Porter, Rodney Wright, David Wiley, Robert Aston, Aurora Lee, Bill Kurtzy, Ben Rothig, Darwin Hannon, Rudy Garcia, Nick Abassi, Felix Alvarez, Cosmic Gypsy, Brian Hone, Orly Radio, Brian Condren, Mark, Nathan Greco, Hexator, Deborah Smith, McJeeves, Flying Out, John Crocker, Christopher Dryas, Sylvan Westby, Artyom, Shiwata, Dave Wilkinson, Steve Mashinsky, Rick Ravis, Gary Swinsburg, Phil Dano, Braxton Howard, Sal Goodsayer, Matt Sutter, Emmerich Grenier, Philip Shane, James Dobson, Kurt Larson, Stephen Insom, Michael George, Russell Jensen, Mountain Sloth, John Maloney, Jason Olds, James Paul West, Alec Doty, Lumalama, Joe Wheeler, Dougal Campbell, Craig Porter, Adam Bishkun, Aaron Luthen, Marjorie, Paul Stanton, David Slimmerly, Tyler Harrison, and Columbo Ahmed. I can make it all the way through. For those of you who are listening to the audio feed and not watching, I have created a video scroll, like credits in a movie, for our video feed with all the names, and I'm trying to keep up with that.
So what we need to do is
I apologize if I did not read your name clearly.
TWIS Minions, the call is now out to do a silly, fast song version of our patrons.
Oh, wow.
That would be funny.
Yeah.
That would be very fun. New names. You want to see your name on that list? Your name in video, your name read out very unclearly and quickly by myself. I am trying to be very like the Micro Machines guy from the 80s.
You're getting there. You're really catching them.
Yeah,
I think you might actually, by the end of it, you might actually be quicker than the Micro Machines guy at some point in this.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for your support on Patreon. And if you are interested in supporting us, you can find information at patreon.com/thisweekinscience. Also, remember that you can help us out simply by telling your friends about TWIS. That's right. Post that you're listening to it. Post a link. Share it. And on next week's show, we'll be back once again for our Valentine's Day episode.
Twistentine's Day.
Twistentine's Day. Lots of love to all of our minions next week for sure. And once again, we'll be broadcasting live online at 8 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday, where you can catch us live online at twist.org/live. and watch and join our chat room. But if you don't make it, don't worry. Past episodes will be online at twist.org/YouTube, or also just go to twist.org.
Thank you for enjoying the show. TWIS is, of course, also available as a podcast. Just Google This Week in Science in your iTunes directory. Or if you have a mobile type device, you can look for TWIS, the number 4, Droid app in the Android marketplace, or simply This Week in Science in anything Apple marketplacey.
For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes will be available on our website. That's at www.twist.org.
What's that website?
It's www.twist.org.
www.twist.org?
That's right, like TWIS, like thisweekinscience.org, like organization, where you can also make comments and start conversations with the hosts and other listeners.
Or you can contact us directly. Email Kirsten at thisweekinscience.com, Justin at twistminion@gmail.com, or Blair at blairbaz@twist.org. Just be sure to put TWIS, TWIS, somewhere in the subject line, or your email will be spam filtered into oblivion. You can also hit us up on the Twitter, where we are at TWIS Science, at Dr. Kiki, at Jacksonfly, and at Blair's Menagerie. We love your feedback. If there's a topic you would like us to cover or address, a suggestion for an interview, a haiku that comes to you in the night, please let us know.
We will be back here next week, right here. And we hope you'll join us again for more great science news.
And if you've learned anything from the show, remember,
it's all in your head.
This week in science. This week in science. This week in science. This week in science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. This week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth, and I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got one disclaimer, and it shouldn't be news, that what I say may not represent your views, but I've done the calculations and I've got a plan. If you listen to the science, you may just better understand that we're not trying to threaten your philosophy. We're just trying to save the world from jeopardy. Jeopardy. And This Week in Science is coming your way. So everybody listen to everything we say. And if you use our method instead of rolling a die, we may rid the world of toxoplasma gondii. Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got a laundry list of items I want to address, from stopping global hunger to dredging Loch Ness. I'm trying to promote more rational thought, and I'll try to answer any question you've got. So how can I ever see the changes I seek when I can only set up shop 1 hour a week? This Week in Science is coming your way. You better just listen to what we say. And if you've learned anything from the words that we've said, then please just remember it's all in your head. Cause it's This Week in Science. This week in science. This week in science. 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 This week in science. This week in science. This week in science. 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 This week in 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 science.
And we have reached the end of our show for another show, number 605.
Ooh, we did it.
No, hippies, hippos. Hippos.
Hippos. I have so many hippos in this room. Look, here's another
Oh,
hippo.
there's another hippo. You got lots of hippos. I don't think I have any hippos.
Here's 2 more hippos.
Oh, cute little hippos.
There's more. I can
I
find
have
more.
So many hippos. I have lots. I have poppers.
You have popper.
Yeah, you know the things are. They're little twisties of paper and with rocks and gunpowder in them. You throw them and they
Good, clean fun. Here's another
great
hippo.
fun when you've got a child. Let's play with poppers.
So
You're
many hippos.
collecting more poppers, more hippos.
Well,
Hippo.
people give me hippos because
It's kind of your thing.
yeah. Because when you work at a zoo, everyone wants to know what your favorite animal is, and then it's all that.
You know what
Which I'm not
got
going to
you?
complain.
I'm gonna get you squirrel and panda things
How dare you? People have also started doing that.
because that's funny.
Yeah. Yes. Ended up with many hippos or many pandas. Not as many squirrels yet. A couple of squirrels, mostly pandas. Yuck. Gross.
Their cute little squirrely teeth and their cute little squirrely tails.
Cute. That's the word for it.
Squirrels are cute, Blair.
I like rats, Rob. I don't like
Tree rats is what he said.
squirrels.
Tree rats.
Yeah.
Called them the tree rat. Yes. What? Whiz Mike? Yeah, so we missed the snow entirely. There's no snow here. It's just been raining.
They closed schools in
inches of
Marin County
snow.
because of rain yesterday.
Wait, what? Because of rain?
Yeah.
Now that's silly.
Yeah, apparently
I
it
do know
caused
that-
flooding and the wind was really high, so trees were coming down.
Yeah. You don't want people getting hurt. And in the Marin area, there are some roads that do get completely submerged. Like there can be the flooding can be kind of bad.
Yeah.
Which makes it hard to get to school. If the one road into the school is flooded.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody canceled their field trip for tomorrow because the superintendent called off all field trips that cross bridges in Marin County.
All right. No bridges. Because it's windy and raining.
Yeah.
Interesting. 6 inches of snow, hot rod. Oi, I'm hoping, my fingers are crossed that we have hit the end of the snow season here in the Portland area.
And I'm hoping for even more rain. I actually got really disappointed today.
Did you see the news? Oh, you got disappointed. Did you see the news about Lake Tahoe getting some? I'm sorry I interrupted you, Justin. What was it? Tahoe. Let's see. 1 second. Water. Gallons. 8.7 billion gallons of water in 2 days.
Pretty good.
8.7 billion gallons.
It's a big lake.
It's a lot of gallons.
2
Can handle it.
days. And
0.7 billion? So that's 8,700 million gallons.
Yes. And since January 1st, the lake has gained over 40 billion gallons. It's a lot of water.
Cool.
A lot of
1,000
water
million,
for
okay.
Tahoe, which was going dry, right?
Yeah, it was real low.
It's really low. The fish are like, okay, so
So I got disappointed because they had this like vacuum suction, what do you call it, sump pumping company come out and remove the lake in the parking lot here, which was fun. I was having a blast driving through because the water would like shoot up on both sides. It was like like an adventure ride at Disneyland this week from all the flooding in the parking lot, and so I'm kind of sad it's gone because it was like a thing me and the kids looked forward to every day. It was like driving through and watching the water like go off up and around the car. It was kind of a blast. But
Do you think that displaced any amphibians when they took that away?
no, I don't. We don't have amphibians in Davis anymore. We used to be awash in them. We used to be absolutely washing them. I remember as a kid dodging them on my bicycle on the way to school. And then something happened. Don't know. Maybe it was the implementation of the wetlands and lots of birds being around to gobble them up. Maybe it was something being introduced into the irrigation around the farms. Nobody seems to really know the exact answer to this. But we are no longer awash in amphibians in this town. Not that there aren't any ever anywhere, but I have not seen one in decades.
Interesting.
And they used to be like it was like sign of the apocalypse. Like it almost seemed like it was raining.
So they're indicator species. So when they disappear, that means water quality changes. But I wonder,
could mean water quality, but also there was a huge wetlands that was literally put next door that got
that should be good for amphibians.
Well,
that
they might be there
for them to breed.
Lots of birds.
It's also a lot of food. That should all be good. That should compensate. That should more than compensate for the existence of predators.
What do you call them? Egrets?
Egrets, yeah.
There's like lots of those, which is awesome. But
that's interesting. That's I wonder though if something changed with water treatment.
It's possible too, because it is. I mean, literally, they were in town. I mean, they were like bouncing off of people's lawns, and you'd have to bike right around them or try to avoid the flattened ones that the last kid had hit. But it was like all over the sidewalks. It was crazy.
What kind? Were they salamanders or newts?
No, these are like toads.
Oh,
like
little toads.
Little toads.
Huh.
All gone.
Interesting. It might have been chytrid then.
I don't know the meaning of the word.
Chytrid fungus. It basically makes their skin disintegrate and fall off, and it kills frogs and toads like really, really, really fast. It doesn't affect tadpoles, but tadpoles can carry it. So they infect each other in these ponds, and then they grow up, and then the chytrid shows itself, and they all die.
Fada says, Jacksonville, you seem to say nobody seems to know, like you feel somebody knows. No, that's how
I bet people do know.
He goes, and I'm not saying I know why, but you people know. You people know why that is. You people know why it is that's happening.
I bet they know. I bet they know what happened.
I bet they know. But what's interesting is this town's population has such a high turnover. It's like a big transient town.
Because of the college.
Because of the university. I think most people who are here are transients. They're either going to visit and get their education and leave, or they've just shown up to teach, or they've taken another teaching job somewhere else, or whatever it is. There's a lot of turnover, except for some really persistent townies such as myself. I don't think there's a lot of people who even remember the reason that we built a toad tunnel under an underpass, under a roadway, which is now just a habitat for rats. There's a reason that we have a toad tunnel in this town, despite the fact that we have no toads.
We got
The
a toad
salamander.
tunnel, but we got no toads.
Yeah, the salamander tunnels at Stanford have been really successful.
Good. Okay.
I guess if you've got salamanders and toads, they can work very well. But if you've killed them with agricultural runoff and funguses and other things, then not too bad.
Yeah. Then it just becomes a rat superhighway.
That's right. I'm waiting for the rats to get around. Oh man, I'm tired again. I'll teach my child how to sleep.
Now, look at the empathy, Blair.
Empathy yawn. Empathy yawn. That's right.
It means I care about you, Kiki.
Aw, it's
It
true.
means that I love you.
I had like I remember the end of like I had a wacky dream last night. Want to hear it?
Tell us about your dream, Kiki.
Going to. It was very wacky. I don't remember who I was with, but I was with a bunch of people, and we were in a building. And then we found out it was like we were doing something fun. It was like we were having a party or something. It was fun. But then we found out that there was gas in the house and that it was going to catch on fire. But then it wasn't just that it was going to catch on fire, that we tried to get away from it, but it was this massive explosion and we were just engulfed in fire. All of us burned, but then we became fire beings.
Wow.
And we took the fire into ourselves.
I never have fun dreams like that with supernatural in it.
And then I got to be ran around with my fire friends.
That's
so
cool.
Pretty intense. Yeah.
It was very intense. And then there was somebody trying to catch us and put us in a cage because we were fire.
I had a dream last night that I was shopping before like some minutes before what I knew was to be some sort of apocalyptic event. Like I was shopping for like all the things like, okay, we need lots of like a shopping carts. Means I had some cohorts and we had shopping carts full of like water and like we needed a shovel and some building supplies and some way to clean water. Like, and then we were like, pretty much had everything on the list and we're ready to go up to the counter. But I'm like, we still got like 5 minutes. Like, I don't know that I actually have enough on the card to cover all this. So let's just like mill about and act like we're still shopping until this thing happens that shuts down the electrical grid and everybody panics and runs away and heads to the hills. It was like this whole like, I'm gonna have to stall a little bit. Either my prediction was slightly off or we were too efficient.
Too efficient in shopping.
For the apocalypse.
For the apocalypse, exactly.
Is that the name of your autobiography, Justin? Shopping for the Apocalypse?
Oh, that's a great one. That is fantastic. That's a great prepper guide right there. Mm-hmm. Shopping for the apocalypse.
10 easy steps.
Mm-hmm. Flint would be something. Should definitely buy.
Flint. Oh, I have that.
That's good.
I have some. I can't remember it's not just a regular flint though. It's like sulfur dioxide or something. It's some sort. No, it's phosphorus.
Okay.
I have a phosphorus flint thing that starts a little mini phosphorus fire.
Nice. And then Leatherman. I would definitely want a Leatherman.
I have I have a Gerber, but
yeah.
Yeah, I got one of those. Super tool.
I broke my Leatherman, so I have to get a new one. I feel like that's a pretty hardcore statement. I broke my Leatherman.
Rob the Sparkly says guns. Actually, wherever I was, I did grab a couple of shotguns because I don't have any. I was like, I might need to protect myself from bears. Well,
grizzlies, right? In a school.
Grizzlies. I might need to protect myself from
grizzlies. In a school.
In a school.
Because that's something we have to worry about.
Oh, which I love the fact the school's like, actually, bears are a problem, but we do not have guns at school. Thank you very much.
Didn't they say they're like, yeah, we just put up a fence and we keep an eye out?
Yeah.
It's really not like, it's just what you do.
We ring the school bell and bring the children in if one is sighted somewhere in the area. It's pretty much how you deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, we think that equal opportunity is important, but bears are not allowed to enroll in our school, so that kind of takes care of that.
Thanks to the quick action of Lunch Lady Bernice, we're going to be having bear meat all this week.
Make sure you pick the shot out of it before you chew.
Yeah. Pick through before you chew. That's the motto.
Goodness.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No, I don't want to think about things.
I know, Bleak. Those are the statistics that our government doesn't let people study. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Blake, love your kids, love your guns. Which do you love more?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an important thing.
Do you hate bears more than you love your children?
Fear them? I fear bears about the same as I fear my children.
Do you fear the unknown more than you love your children? That's what it is.
I don't want to turn down this political road, though.
No,
Although
I like guns. I like going and shooting guns at a shooting range or at a place that's specially set up for target shooting.
Although I'm a little bit excited about
but not in the house.
Donald what's Tiny Hands is threat of defunding California. Because I feel like that means we don't have to pay federal tax anymore. And we actually give a lot more money than we take from the federal government.
California were to, I mean, seriously, if they were to say they were going to do that, then California would be like, all right, we're out.
Peace.
Yeah.
We got our own food. We got Hollywood. We got our own trades. We're good.
So here's the thing. If you look at the red state, blue state map across the country, those that take more money from the federal government than they give to it, it's those that give more to the federal government than they receive in dollar benefits are the blue states. With a few exceptions somewhere in there, that's the same map as the electoral map. That is freaking irony and hilarity.
Yeah, that's very true. That's hilarious. He wants to defund California.
Thing.
Oh my God.
I love this whole states' rights thing. California uber alles, Yeah. The only problem with
Ecotopia, here we come.
The only problem with seceding from the nation is it does hand the rest of it over to the bastards. But I love my state. I'm so happy that the state I'm in is the state I'm in and the state going forward. San Francisco.
Hey,
San Francisco. By the way,
what are you in? You're a little animated.
Let me tell you, I had a big nap. I had a 3-hour nap, but right before the show today. It was unplanned but unavoidable. San Francisco is now talking about free community college.
Oh, yeah. That already happened. Yeah, starting in the fall. City College of San Francisco is free.
That is so cool.
With available grants for lower income free tuition students to pay for books. Thank you, San Francisco, the shining light. So yeah, all of these blue states with their liberal policies and their heavy regulations and their amazing economies as a result of that have been keeping the federal government afloat. We live in, it's not even just there's dystopia, but there's also there's this ironic
there's an unfounded sense of authority in terms of all right, California, take this. But okay.
Well, there was also something hilarious that happened because one of the first things they wanted to do, which I alluded to in the disclaimers, they were actually talking about selling off 33 million acres of public land.
Right. Yep.
Yes.
And some of the first people that complained were the constituents who were like, No, I've been feeding my cattle on government land for free for 40 years. I don't want to actually have to buy the land and maintain it or have any sort of responsibility for. No, like this is like. There's a certain point when the ideology based on fake facts is going to run into reality. I don't know when or if that'll happen.
There's just a disconnect between what's supposed to be priorities and what now they're trying to do. Like
Right.
if your priority is for states' rights, then you can't federally illegalize things.
Stop overthinking this. Everybody who's involved in politics, except for maybe 2 people, is a lawyer. Right. And I'm not condemning lawyerisming broadly, but your job is to take on your client's point of view and fight for it vigorously, litigate vigorously, defend it vigorously, regardless of what's fair, who's guilty, what's in the best interest of society. So and to that, and I think that's why, honestly, politicians a lot of politicians on one side of the political spectrum have a negative view or believe that global warming might just be fake part of some agenda. They might actually believe that because everybody around them who they associate with, whose personalities they take on through playing with them each and every day.
Because they played with them from preschool on.
Since preschool on. Yeah. Work in an industry where the facts actually don't matter. It's the agenda and how you can position it that counts.
Everything's made up and the facts don't matter. It's like whose lines anyway, but
right. So they're what they consider professionals are a bunch of people who work with spinning and arguing regardless of facts or past a fact or despite the fact, versus professionals who are only working with the facts as they find them. And they probably just conceptually, cognitively don't understand that somebody could take on a job where they just follow facts. Because what if the facts don't lead where you want them to? Then you have your work cut out for you, right? That's when your experience and your skill comes into play, when the facts don't line up and then you work your way around. No. There's actually people in a field called science that seek just the facts and follow them, whether their client be guilty or innocent, whether their client get what they want at the end or don't.
No matter who's paying for the study.
Right, who's paying for it.
Yeah.
They're just going to follow the evidence portion of it, the fact portion of it, wherever it leads, and ignore anything that isn't those things. Right? I bet they actually can't fathom that. Somebody must be paying them to say this. Somebody must want them to say that. They're defending a client because everybody thinks like lawyers, right?
Mm-hmm.
No. Actually, most of us don't. And that's why lawyers, to an extent, do get a bad rap, because there's a lot of inherent BS that is required in that profession.
Yeah, it's kind of like
so-called profession.
When I was a child, and there's that trope of salesmen being liars, right?
Which is
and
true.
Just like salesmen are liars, salesmen
Yes,
are liars.
sir.
They lie for a living. They're professional liars,
Do
right?
you remember Pee Wee Herman?
Yes, the door-to-door
I was terrified
salesman.
when the traveling salesman came to the door. He's like, salesman! Don't let him in.
And then, so both of my parents have spent time as salesmen. And so I would go to their trade show and work in the booth as a teenager. And I'd have to stand there, be like, yes, this $150 wholesale beaded bag with a butterfly on it that's the size of a deck of cards. Yes, you should buy 6 of these for your store. And I just was not cut out for it in any way, because they would be like, you're young. Would you carry this bag? It's like, I'll be over there. It's interesting because it's not just lying. It's a lot more. It's more intricate than that. It's a skill. It's not as simple as just standing there and lying, right? And again, it's a spin, right? So you don't have to lie to be a good salesman, but you have to be able to make someone feel a certain way about a certain thing, right? It's along similar lines. It's because we live in this capitalist environment that it's kind of our default, right? Is to
as a lifelong professional salesperson.
Yeah.
I can tell you too, like it's some people need to lie to sell. I've heard people lie to sell. It's always awkward. And what I do is, there's an element of product knowledge in what I do, which is presentation and making it show business, making the showing of information exciting is sometimes enough. That you don't have to mislead somebody or try to influence them, but just show enthusiasm.
Oh yeah,
that's contagious because that personality. Oh my gosh, it's all down to the 3-year-olds in preschool.
Right.
Your personality about you and your excitement and your wanting to engage and show things that the product does can be contagious, and sometimes that's enough. However, there's also an element of somebody can do analysis to paralysis on what the decision is that they want. And what they really need is somebody to give them, they're on the edge of making a decision. Just need a little nudge, somebody to create a little urgency.
Yeah. Well, but also there's the whole art of answering the question you wish they asked, right?
Oh, that I'm not good at.
There's people that are very good at that. So when they ask you, would you carry this beaded bag? You can say, oh, this is one of our best sellers. And that may be true. And I'm not answering the question you asked. Right. I'm answering the question that I actually have the right answer for. Or I could be saying, well, I saw Paris Hilton carrying this one the other day or whatever.
That happens every once in a while with an odd color of a vehicle that is put out. And somebody's like, would you buy a car that color? Right?
Yeah.
But you don't and the answer is no.
Right.
Right. But if I did, gosh, that would make it easy to find in a parking lot, wouldn't it? Wow, that bright neon green is going to make you much more visible on the road, much less likely to get rear-ended.
Yeah.
You find that there's got to be a benefit of having a neon orange car. There has to be something. Yeah. If you get stuck in the snow, you're going to get spotted right away, where somebody driving the white automobile will be left there for weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. Not to mention, I'm so happy that hybrid cars are taking off, but this way yours will be different from everyone else's.
Exactly. So, and people will ask interior, exterior color questions. And then, so you find it, then you're not necessarily being dishonest. You're also being honest for somebody else's opinion other than your own, maybe, because somebody does love that purse. And if you know why they love that purse, you can tell them why some people say this purse makes you look more sophisticated, right? You can tell them what some people like about it, even if you can't freaking stand it. But I think that's different than saying, too many trees depletes the oxygen on the planet.
Right. There's a way to do these things without just being a
misleading and lying. Right.
I mean, you can say it's more important that we have a hospital there than that we have a forest, right? And that's a conversation that you can have. Right. But to say we don't need those trees, there's that's why when people just bring alternative facts, when they bring in just falsities into the conversation, it's difficult to have a productive conversation because there's no way to debate it. Because if they're just going to say the sky is green, how can you have a real conversation?
Well, but yeah, and facts like at the last climate summit, the climatologists engaged in a massacre of innocent people, or like there's some stuff that's just like, no, you're lying. The murder rate in the United States is over 30% now. No, you just made that up. That's that's just lying. And I think perhaps one of the problems actually that we're having with our current administration is that they're not a lawyer. That they don't understand the subtleties of sales or spin.
Right.
And that they're used to saying whatever they want. This is going to be the most fantastic, fabulous. They're just used to ginning up or I don't know what the word is. I'm becoming a vocabulary low person. There is a thing that you're actually not supposed to do it in real estate, but where you over embellish or over exaggerate the potential of something.
Hyperbolize? Is that what you're talking about?
I don't even know if I have this, but you see it all the time. Rare gem fixer-upper diamond in the rough property. Just looking for a little TLC from the next owner. Like there's a bit of that goes on. Like
euphemisms, kind of.
Even though like the back half of the house is fire damaged and the front half all has mold, right?
Right.
It's more than just a little diamond in the rough. But I think maybe that's the problem that we're seeing in this current administration is the fact that it's not a lawyer who's like, I need the choice words that cut just along the
Instead of
edges.
calling it a fixer-upper, they're going, best property you've ever seen.
You're an idiot if you don't buy it.
A king would want to live here.
Yeah, this is actually selling for a 100,000th of the price it should be, just because I'm such a good guy. Like it's just the fact that it's never had to stand up to a critical audience also makes you think, like, if I was a billionaire, I think I could last 2 years. I think I would make it 2 years before I was a full-blown narcissist. Right? For somebody who's had a lifetime as an elite wealthy person, I think it's impossible. Even like, I don't even blame genetics or personality traits. I think it's just at some point becomes impossible not to become a narcissist. If you're engaged in business where everybody around you is paid by you and paid well by you, and their careers are based on you, your entire feedback loop is going to be of assumed personalities, of false personas, of positive feedback. And you don't have that really if you've lived and worked as a lawyer, because you're going up against an opposition. You're going up against a judge who might go against. You're going up against a whole lot of factors that the results might not always go your way. So you get a thick skin. You get, okay, I'll try better next time. Lost that round. This one I went too far. I get it. I'll come back. I'll retool. But if you've only been told yes for pretty much your whole life, how could you help but become a complete narcissist? And what happens in a narcissistic personality is anything that is contrary to the view you have of yourself becomes a threat. And that's what we're seeing. Everything that's like a protest or a ruling against becomes a personal assault, personal threat. That's why all news is fake. So-called judges, we got like everything is like going after Nordstrom's because they think he's attacking his daughter, because like everything becomes a personal threat, and he's reacting violently and hostilely towards it in order to preserve that image. And I think if you take the DMSO of narcissistic personality traits and compare that to everything we're going to see from this president, I bet they match up. So just like we just verse for verse in that psychological profile is what we're going to see. And anybody who's been through any sort of fire of even being a lawyer, right? It's a great example. You win cases, you lose cases, is going to have developed a thick skin and probably wouldn't have been able to make it that far. So maybe actually I'm defending lawyers as being really good for politics, because at least we wouldn't have ended up with this.
Well, the thing about law too is that there are rules for discourse, right?
Yes, let's follow the laws and have the rules for discourse.
Rules for discourse. Can we have a conversation based on facts?
Yeah.
That would be great. Like, that's the thing about all of this.
Name calling, and let's just have a conversation.
Let's have a conversation about facts.
And if you don't have the
conversations,
if you don't have the facts to back up your position, and I have facts that refute your position and back up my position, then maybe you should reconsider your position, or vice versa.
Yeah, or look at, if you're trying to find a reason to support something, you can't make up facts. You have to find things that actually exist. It's kind of like we were talking about before. Right. You can't cut down trees saying that trees are bad for you. You can cut down trees and say we need this space for a hospital.
Right.
But you can't.
We need it for something important.
If you want to cut down trees, come up with a reason to do that is based on actual factual things.
Unless you're a narcissist. Unless you're a narcissist, in which case facts don't matter unless if somebody presents them to you in opposition, and then that person is threatening your view of yourself, and therefore that person is a threat, and they're only doing it to bring you down.
But here's the thing. This is one person.
I gotta Google it.
I would like to talk about just not this is going down a negative pathway.
I don't think so.
Yeah, kind of. I don't, but in my mind,
it's a preparation.
I'm tired. I'm tired right now. But I feel like we should be trying to have more conversations with people around us. Mm-hmm. Going out into our neighborhoods, making conversation with people at the grocery store, at the library, at the post office, talking with people about day-to-day things, making local connections within the neighborhood to strengthen local community. On Facebook, don't attack people. I got called a snowflake today, but I engaged in the conversation in the entirely wrong way. I didn't ask questions. I didn't try to address the person's concerns. I just started debunking the claims immediately. And so that got the guy's back up. Mm-hmm. So, there are ways to go about conversating mm-hmm. that allow conversation to happen a little bit more easily. And I think if we can ask questions, find out where people are coming from, then potentially we can find out something that we have in common. If people are worried about, like we were talking about guns earlier in the chat room, find out, you know what, you must be really, are you just really afraid? Do you like guns because you like having them, or are you really afraid that someone's going to break into your house? Are you afraid for your own safety, and start the conversation that way, and find out if it's about safety, because we all want to be safe in a certain way, but we want to be safe in different ways. I want to be safe by getting people out of poverty and providing education for everyone. That's how I feel like more of us are going to be safe. But that's me.
I keep saying, I keep saying DSMO. It's just DSM. I don't know why I keep making that mistake. Okay, this is Wikipedia. Associated features of narcissistic personality disorder. Are you ready? Tell me
how long is it going to take?
This is going to take like 2 minutes, but tell me if you can't have somebody in mind as I read this. Narcissistic personality disorder. People with narcissistic personality disorder tend to exaggerate their skills and accomplishments, as well as their level of intimacy with people they consider to be of high status. Their sense of superiority may cause them to monopolize conversations and to become impatient or disdainful when others talk about themselves. In the course of a conversation, they may purposefully or unknowingly disparage or devalue the other person by overemphasizing their own success. When they're aware that their statements have hurt someone else, they tend to react with contempt and to view it as a sign of weakness. When their own ego is wounded by a real or perceived criticism, their anger can be disproportionate to the situation, but typically their actions and responses are deliberate and calculated. Despite occasional flare-ups of insecurity, their self-image is primarily stable, i.e. overinflated. To the extent that people are pathologically narcissistic, they can be controlling, blaming, self-absorbed, intolerant of others' views, unaware of others' needs, the effects of their behavior on others, and insistent that others see them as they wish to be seen. Narcissistic individuals use various strategies to protect the self at the expense of others. They tend to devalue, degrade, insult, blame others, and they often respond to threatening feedback with anger and hostility. Since the fragile ego of individuals with NPD is hypersensitive to perceived criticism or defeat, they're prone to feelings of shame, humiliation, worthlessness over minor, even imagined incidents. They usually mask these feelings from others with feigned humility, isolating socially, or they may react with outbursts of rage, defiance, or by seeking revenge. The merging of the self-inflated concept and the actual self is seen in the inherent grandiosity of narcissistic personality disorder. Also inherent in this process are the defense mechanisms of denial, idealization, and devaluation. According to the DSM-5, many highly successful individuals display personality traits that might be considered narcissistic. Only when these traits are inflexible, maladaptive, and persisting and cause significant functional impairment or subjective distress do they constitute narcissistic personality disorder. Although overconfidence tends to make individuals with NPD ambitious, it does not necessarily lead to success and high achievement professionally. These individuals may be unwilling to compete or may refuse to take any risks in order to avoid appearing like a failure. In addition, their inability to tolerate setbacks, disagreements, or criticism, along with lack of empathy, make it difficult for such individuals to work cooperatively with others or to maintain long-term professional relationships with superiors and colleagues. Imagine if they don't have superiors and colleagues, though. Wow. Sound familiar? Yikes!
We are not armchair psychologists, and it is not okay to make psychological diagnoses of individuals who you only see through representations.
Don't try it at work, people, but this one kind of fits. The emperor wears these clothes.
I'm not going to.
You don't have to.
I'm
You
just
don't have to.
remarks.
You don't have to.
And this is why I don't want this conversation to go on anymore. We can have these conversations individually.
Then say goodnight, Kiki.
We're going to go away now. No more politics and no more. We're going to lose audience. We're going to lose people.
Those people left a long time ago. I pissed them off day one.
I don't think so. I don't know.
I did. I did.
This
Long time
kind
ago.
of conversation is how we really lose people and how we really turn people off. Because you're attacking. It's attacking. It's attacking. It's not having a conversation. So you've got an idea. You ranted on it. It's yours. I will talk with you about it at some point on Facebook in a private conversation.
Okay. All right. Well, then I will. And then in that case, I will say, good night, Justin.
Good night, Kiki.
Good night, Blair.
Everyone who's still with us, thank you so much for watching this evening. Thanks for hanging around. I hope you enjoyed the science of the show. And we'll be back next week with more science. National Hippo Day next Wednesday. It's going to be amazing.